Hi, Mr. Lucas here. Just going to take you through some of the basics, the basic information that you need to know if you're thinking about or considering taking GCSE PE when it comes to year 10 and 11. I've got up on the screen at the moment the basics for you, but the piece that's highlighted there, the link, is to the specification. So you can see that we work with AQA for our GCSE PE, but if you want to have a really good read of the specification, you can do. What I'm going to do for you today is just highlight the main elements, the bits that you already need to know that might help you whether or not you think this is the right course for you. 3 key elements to the course. The first one is your examination. There's 2 exams at the end of the course at the end of year 11. So you study theory work through year 10 and year 11, and then there's 2 papers at the end. I'll give you a bit more detail about each of these key elements as we go through the video, the PowerPoint presentation. The second point there, key element, is your practical assessment, where you choose 3 sports to be assessed in, and again I'll go into more detail about that in a second. And then the final part is your written coursework, what's known as your NEA, your non-examination assessment, piece of written coursework that we do at the end of year 11, or sorry, not the end of year 11, after Christmas in year 11. So looking at key element 1, that's your exams. There's 2 exams at the end of the course. They're taken usually in kind of May, June time of year 11. There's 2 papers that you sit on different days. And each paper is worth 30% of your final GCSE PE grade. So you can see that the 2 papers together will make up 60% of your final grade. Important that you remember, or have an idea of the different things that you're going to study in that theory element for those 2 papers. For paper 1, the human body and movement in physical activity and sport, that's the applied anatomy and physiology, that's all the muscles and bones. We look at movement analysis, how the body moves. A little bit of physical training, so we look at different training methods and how different sports would apply those training methods. And then if we collect data on training or we analyse sport, we're using sports analytics, how can we use that to help performers to improve? The second paper is on what we call socio-cultural influences, well-being and physical activity and sport. Now the socio-cultural bit is looking at how society, different cultures affect someone's participation in sport. But the first area there is our sports psychology, and we do look a lot at how different athletes respond in different environments. Then we look at the socio-cultural influences. We look at target groups like women in sport and ethnic minorities in sport and how we engage different groups of people into sport. And then we look at health and fitness and well-being, so physical, social and mental well-being and the impact that sport can have on that. And then finally the use of data. So if we do collect data on athletes in their training, how do we use that data to either help them improve their performance, could be rehabilitation from injuries. So they're the 2 papers. That's what you study, and at the end of year 11 you'll sit paper 1 and paper 2 having covered all of that work in your theory work in year 10 and 11. And there'll be an exam on that. Both papers, it says, consist of a mixture of multiple choice. So there's a few multiple choice questions at the start of the paper, objective test questions, usually kind of fact questions. Do you know basic facts about what you've been taught? Some short answer questions that require a little bit of explanation, and then some extended answer questions where you have to really regurgitate all the information you've learned over the last 2 years into a decent length of prose. Key element 2 is your practical assessment. So in year 10, you'll take part in lots of different practical activities, and what we're really searching for is to find your best 3. You'll only be assessed on your best 3, and you'll be assessed on 2 things, 2 factors in your sport. You'll be tested on or assessed on your skill level, and you'll be assessed on your ability to take those skills into a game. So in a lesson, we might spend some time obviously doing our warm-up, and then we'll get into some skills drills, and the member of staff that's teaching you will assess your skill level, and then we'll put you into a competitive game at the end, and they'll assess whether or not you can take that skill level into a competitive game. So it's your top 3 sports from what you've done across year 10 that we'll take into your final grade. Key thing to remember though is the bit that's got the little arrow next to it there. The 3 sports must consist of 1 team sport and 2 individual sports, or 2 team sports and 1 individual. You can't have 3 team sports, so you can't do netball, basketball and rugby. That'd be 3 team sports, can't do that. If you are unsure about any of the sports that are on the list of sports you can be assessed on, go and have a look at the specification. There's a long list there of all the team sports and all of the individual sports. And if you do a sport outside of school that we don't do here in school, then by all means we come and see us and we can arrange to do some video evidence for you, where we can video your performance, or parents can video your performance, and then we can assess that. We've had people do things like skiing and rowing and boxing, which are all on the syllabus. You can do all of those. So if that is the case, then please come and see us, and we can assess that using video evidence. Key element 3 is your written coursework. Now we take you through this step by step. We don't leave you just to crack on with it. We produce a really good little booklet to help you. It's worth 10% of your final GCSE PE grade. I think I forgot to mention that each one of your sports, your practical sports, is worth 10% each, so that's 30% of your final grade. And your final element here, the non-examination assessment, your coursework, is worth another 10%. So this requires you to undertake an analysis and an evaluation of your performance. So you'll choose one sport, probably your strongest sport, and you will evaluate your strengths and weaknesses in that sport. And then once you've identified your weaknesses, and we have a look at what you've written to see how well you can identify your strengths and weaknesses. And once you've identified your weaknesses, you have to put together a program to improve those weaknesses, using what you've learned over the year 10 and 11 in the classroom, the theory elements, to take those through to help you create a training program to improve your performance. So that's the last key element. So you can see there's a number of elements that go towards it. Paper 1 is 30%, paper 2 30%, your written coursework is 10%, and then 10% for each of your practical activities. And that brings you to the 100% for your final grade. Where did it take you? This is one that a lot of people ask. Well, there's not many places that GCSE PE won't take you, because there's lots of elements of physiology, so anything to do with nursing, physio, anything like that you want to go into, it's all in there. Psychology, there's sociology incorporated into the course. There's no limiting factors to where you can take the qualification, and there genuinely isn't. But I would say that if you have got some practical ability and a genuine interest in sport, I would say that's integral to you doing well. I encourage students to get on the BBC Sports website every morning and have a look at the headlines and see what's going on. There's always something happening, whether it's gender issues in sport or drugs in sport, both issues that we cover. Whether it's football hooliganism, more elements that we cover. Just have a look to see what's going on in the world and world of sport, and try and stay on top of that, because you'll always be asked to give practical examples of things that you write about. So staying on top of that is essential. And lastly, if you want to learn a little bit more about what we do, I've put on here some videos that we use to provoke conversation and thought. There's a couple there on technology in sport and how we use technology, whether that's training methods or whether that's different materials. Carbon fibre is the latest one at the moment. We look at how things like tennis rackets have changed from the old Bjorn Borg days of wooden rackets to where we are now with carbon fibre and personally made sports equipment. Training methods in recovery, I think I've got one on there of LeBron James getting in an oxygen tent after a basketball match to aid his recovery. We look at lots of different methods of recovery, from cryogenics all the way through to oxygen tents, ice baths, which I know a lot of people will be probably more familiar with. We do look at football hooliganism and drugs in sport. There's videos there that we put on to try and provoke a little bit of reaction and find out what students already know, and then go ahead and teach them a little bit more. We look at sportsmanship and gamesmanship, so there's a lovely video there that you'll probably find very interesting to watch anyway. And then one of the key topics at the moment is women in sport, because women in sport is growing. Participation is growing. Media coverage is growing, so it's one really to stay up to date with. Obviously, if you've got any more questions, or is anything that you don't think we've covered or you don't understand, first port of call will be your son or daughter's PE teacher, and they'll be able to talk them through it, or get in touch with me, or have a look on the spec. The link, remember, is on the first slide, and then that way you will be able to find out all the information you need. Good luck, and hopefully we'll see you doing GCSE PE in year 11. Thanks very much.